Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Stephanie Banks, a marketing manager at Perficient, and I'm excited to be moderating today's webinar on demystifying IBM Watson, uncovering the power of cognitive. Today's session will cover the definition, role of cognitive use cases for IBM Watson, real-world Watson success stories with associated ROI, and our recommended approach to getting started. We're recording the session today, and we'll be sure to email you with information on how to access this afterwards. Time permitting, we'll answer questions at the end of the presentation, so please type those into the chat box on your screen. In a moment, I'll hand it over to our speaker, but first let me give you a quick overview of Perficient. Perficient is the leading digital transformation consulting firm serving Global 2000 and enterprise customers throughout North America. With unparalleled information technology, management consulting, and creative capabilities, Perficient and its Perficient Digital Agency deliver vision, execution, and value. We have a broad network of locations across the US, as well as offshore facilities in India and China. We deliver digital experience, business optimization, and industry solutions that cultivate and captivate customers, drive efficiency, integrate business processes, improve productivity, reduce costs, and create a more agile enterprise. Founded in 1997, we're a public company with approximately 3,000 employees. We form strategic partnerships with major technology vendors and also have dedicated solution and industry practices. And now a little background on our speaker. Kristine Livingston is the IBM Watson Practice Director here at Perficient. She leads our team of Watson subject matter experts and works closely with IBM to deliver outstanding Watson solutions across industries. Kristine is also a frequent speaker at IBM conferences like World of Watson and Interconnect, along with major industry events like HIMSS. And now to kick off the webinar, we'd like to start a quick poll to see where everyone is on their path to adopting and implementing cognitive solutions. So you can select the following options that best applies to your organization. Are you researching the capabilities of cognitive? Evaluating cognitive platforms, starting to implement a cognitive platform, optimizing an existing cognitive implementation. And we'll give everyone a few moments to answer. All right, and not surprisingly, most people are on the initial research stage. So this will be a good webinar for everyone here today. And now I will turn things over to Kristine for the presentation.
All right, thanks, Steph. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Just wanted to give you a quick picture of what we're going to talk about today. Thought we would do a little bit of an introduction of our Watson practice and capabilities. And then what I assume most of you are here today to hear about is really a little bit more on what is Watson, how is it being used, and how can people actually get started with this platform. So Perficient's Watson practice is about 20 delivery professionals today. We have experience across analytics, big data, content management, enterprise search, digital experience, and business optimization, which are all key components of a Watson cognitive solution. And we offer services really on all of the key Watson technologies. As you've seen, a lot of things are being branded Watson these days, so we really focus on the primary Watson cognitive offerings, which we'll detail in a few minutes. And we help customers with everything from readiness evaluations, business case development, all the way through pilots, prototypes, and full-scale implementations and integrations. We just won this year the IBM Beacon Award for an outstanding Watson cognitive solution, which is IBM's recognition of a significant achievement and solution in a space or a domain. So we're proud to be the recipient of that award. So I always like to level set a little bit and talk about what is Watson. And it's been a very interesting transition that even over the past year, the knowledge and the perception of Watson has transitioned from the science project that IBM did that won Jeopardy to a tablet that's talking with Serena Williams to the Super Bowl with H&R Block, and Watson is really everywhere. But what is this Watson thing that we hear about? What are some of the characteristics of it, and how do I deploy it? So Watson is not a supercomputer living somewhere with one massively trained corporate brain, but it's a cognitive platform designed to be incorporated and integrated throughout your organization. We would consider cognitive as having the three pillars of understanding, reasoning, and learning. So we define this ability to understand as an ability to understand information in all forms, which means structured, unstructured, audio, visual, all different types of information, which traditional analytic systems can't process. Traditional analytics typically only understand very structured data systems and applications, so cognitive extends that capability to this realm of unstructured data. Cognitive platforms also have an ability to reason or to form hypotheses, to understand potential outcomes, and prioritize recommendations so that ultimately people can make stronger, more consistent decisions. And then the piece that most people are familiar with is the notion of machine learning, which is an ability to learn through training data and ultimately achieve outcomes that you cannot necessarily achieve through traditionally programmed systems to scale to new levels. So continuing that vein of Watson as a platform, there are again a lot of different offerings that fall underneath this umbrella of Watson. You may have seen things like Watson for Oncology on the 60 Minutes presentation last fall, looking at artificial intelligence. This is a specific cognitive application focused on supporting the treatment plans for cancer patients. It's an extension of the cognitive platform through the Watson Developer Cloud to the healthcare domain. We'll talk a little bit about Watson Explore in a few minutes, but really wanted to set the stage that Watson is many pieces that comprise overall a cognitive platform, again designed to be modular and integrated and infused into your organization. So why we really believe cognitive is important, again, we talked a little bit about cognitive as having an ability to understand unstructured data. And everyone talks about big data, but the piece that no one talks about is that of that information growth, 80% of that is unstructured. So that means 80% of the information available to you today, you can't understand through traditional analytic systems and applications. We also see as we move into this millennial generation, people are expecting to have very personal, very relevant, and immediate engagement. So as we have these sort of competing agendas of information growth while people are actually expecting a more personal, high-touch experience, we see cognitive as the bridge that's helping people address and understand all of this unstructured data while at the same time engaging with them in a very natural, personal way and reaching them on that individual level. So just to make sure, again, that we're all talking the same language here, structured versus unstructured data. Structured data is going to be very easy to organize and to classify. It's going to be things that you can put into databases, spreadsheets. Again, this is information that we know how to analyze very, very well today. Unstructured data is a lot more challenging to organize using these traditional formats, but this is really how we as people interact and engage with the world around us. So this is a very brief healthcare example showing the structured information you may fill out when you go to your physician's office, and then also showing the unstructured data, which happens in your actual everyday engagement with that physician. So what do you actually say to your physician when you sit down and explain to him why you're there and what you're experiencing? And we're seeing that a lot of time the information in that unstructured data is really where the value and the power of these solutions lies. So analyzing unstructured content is a little bit more challenging than it may appear on the surface. And we're going to go all the way back to a Jeopardy example and talk about why you need to do more than just look at keyword evidence. So if we take this Jeopardy example that says, in May 1898, Portugal celebrated the 400th anniversary of this explorer's arrival in India. And we compare that with this other passage that says, in May, Gary arrived in India after he celebrated his anniversary in Portugal. If we look for keyword matches across these two passages when searching for an answer, this is going to be a great match, right? They both share the notion of a celebration, the month of May, an anniversary. They talk about the same countries. So we may deduce incorrectly, obviously, that Gary is the explorer that we're looking for. So we as people know that this evidence is very, very weak and would arrive at a much stronger conclusion. So we need to teach our applications to think and reason the way that people do. So Watson seeks to leverage multiple algorithms to really dig deeper to understand the context of the question and understand the strength of potential matches. So if we take that same question but compare that to a different passage that says, on the 27th of May 1498, Vasco da Gama landed in Kapad Beach, we can use things like temporal reasoning to know that the 400th anniversary of May 1898 is equivalent to May of 1498. We can use statistical paraphrasing to know that arriving somewhere may really imply landing somewhere. And geospatial reasoning tells us that Kapad Beach is in India. Therefore, if I've arrived in Kapad Beach, I have arrived in India. And we can come up with a much more correct conclusion that Vasco da Gama is the explorer that we're looking for. If we go back to that keyword scenario, you can see that there's really no keywords in common across these two passages other than the month of May. So if all we're doing is looking for specific phrases or keywords, we're never really uncovering the true meaning or context of the interactions and the communication that we have in our everyday world. So a few pieces, again, of this Watson platform are Watson Explorer and the Watson Developer Cloud Services. So the Watson Explorer Enterprise Edition is really a foundational step to cognitive solutions, and it's focused on connecting data silos throughout your organization. So understanding both your structured and unstructured data in a single consolidated view provides this 360-degree view and allows you to really enable a true enterprise search throughout your organization. You can search naturally using everyday language, so you can answer questions like, why is the sky blue, rather than just searching for, again, keywords like sky is blue. And help set the stage by preparing and consolidating your data for cognitive solutions. Watson Explorer Advanced Edition is another offering that falls underneath this big Watson umbrella. And this is all about that transformation of unstructured data to structured data points. So this will help you, again, leverage all that unstructured information in your traditional existing analytics applications, and includes some visualizations that allow you to uncover relationships, correlations, trends, deviations in all of that unstructured content. It really provides you a platform to analyze unstructured data the same way we know how to analyze very structured data points today. The Watson Developer Cloud is really where the heart and the soul, so to speak, of a Watson solution lives. These are all SaaS-based APIs available through the Bluemix platform that offer key components of that cognitive functionality. So again, if you think all the way back to Jeopardy, what IBM has done is they've taken all of those individual components that were necessary to play a game like Jeopardy, and they've modularized those into individual APIs, providing point functionality that can be integrated into your organization. There are things that are fairly self-explanatory, right, like speech-to-text and text-to-speech. There are also APIs that do conversational interactions. That's now been, dialogue and natural language classifier have now been consolidated into the single conversation API that allows you to engage in a question and answer type of dialogue. There are things like visual recognition, which allows you to understand and interpret images. And then there's a huge focus on language, really the understanding, the dissection of natural language, understanding tone, sentiment, and personalization. And again, these are all APIs that are designed to be used together and infused into your organization. So some of the usage patterns we see for Watson driving value would be considered enhancing, scaling, and accelerating. So when people seek to make a decision, we first are going to observe the situation around us, interpret that situation, evaluate some options, and ultimately arrive at what we believe is the best decision. Watson seeks to help with this notion of observing and interpreting the situation around you and presenting options for that person to evaluate so that ultimately they can make a stronger decision. Once we've done that process, you can now start to scale your expertise. As you start to strengthen that decision-making process, you can start to make more objective and more consistent decisions as an organization, which will in turn allow you to scale that expertise. And ultimately, the goal is to help capture the expertise of your top performers and accelerate that knowledge and make it available and accessible to your newer employees so that you've really accelerated and shortened your learning curve within your organization. So some of the usage patterns that we've seen with Watson, I think the probably most predominant scenario is around customer service and engagement. And this manifests itself in quite a few different ways. But the highest level groupings would be really an agent assist application, which is focused on providing support and assistance to your call center agents or your customer service representatives that allow them, again, to have that 360-degree view to deliver more consistent, more objective answers. And they help to scale this expertise to more of your novice agents. And really it's about, again, strengthening decision-making in the moment by understanding all of the unstructured data you have available to you. Virtual agents, you may think of these in the realm of chatbots, but they're really a little more than a chatbot. And this is when people are focused on providing self-service options or guiding customers through a transaction or a process. And then we've seen some of these solutions even go through an integrated voice solution, which may mean IVR either replacement or enhancement. And we've also seen Watson as an active listener, meaning you actually have Watson listening to the call as it's happening in real time and presenting and displaying relevant information to that agent so that they can answer customers' questions more quickly. And then we're seeing a lot of activity around customer service interaction analysis. So this is more of the post-mortem interaction with your customer. Can you actually look at all of those mediums and channels that you've engaged with customers across? Can you understand how customers perceive your company, your products? Can you identify areas for improvement? And ultimately, can you uncover some of the trends and relationships happening? And a lot of these end up becoming more conversational. So I always like to talk a little bit about what differentiates a cognitive conversation from a scripted conversation. So most chatbots follow a traditional scripted conversation flow, which can be most closely thought of in the context of your traditional IVR system, right? So you call in to your bank and they say, if you would like to pay your bill, press 1. If you want to check your balance, press 2, et cetera, right? And you're traversing down a decision tree, picking a number at each decision, where really you're guided along a predefined flow. And chatbots really follow that same scripted flow, but they just look for keywords or phrases rather than touch tone buttons at those key decision points. They're going to function best on very structured data points, work very, very well for short and simple tasks, and are relatively quick to implement, but really don't scale to the same level or degree. A cognitive conversation is going to be driven by conversational intent. So rather than defining the order of operations that someone needs to walk through in a dialogue or an interaction with them, we're going to train Watson to actually understand the reason someone may be calling, the various ways they may express that reason, and we'll guide them through a conversation based on understanding the context and the natural language of that conversation rather than by traversing down a predefined decision tree. Cognitive conversations can operate on both structured and unstructured data. They have an ability to learn over time. That's where machine learning comes into play. And we found that they're really capable of a much broader range of tasks. They're much more scalable. And the training time for these conversations really varies by the complexity of the application. So I'm not going to run through all of these, but wanted to just display some use cases by industry that we've seen. In financial services, insurance, banking, we're seeing a lot of cognitive underwriting, claims management, claims processing. Healthcare, we've seen a lot around patient population identification. Retail, probably the most common use case is around guided shopping. And then we're seeing some activity in manufacturing around things like early defect warning. Again, these are all driven by understanding unstructured data available to your organization and digging into that unstructured data at a deeper level. So a few of the case studies, the solutions that we've implemented, we helped a Midwestern healthcare provider who was looking to understand their patient readmission rates. We helped them understand and accurately predict when patients were going to be readmitted. And this is a very interesting case study in that it really speaks to the power of unstructured data. We initially started with a predictive model based solely on unstructured data, and we're able to get about 70% accurate, which was a good improvement over where they were with just a pen and paper Excel type of tool. But what we found was that there was still a knowledge gap in terms of why patients were coming back to the hospital. So by including unstructured data, by having Watson actually read and analyze the EMR, all of the interactions you have with your provider, we were able to incorporate Watson and move their prediction accuracy up to 93%. And we're also able to understand not only that Joe is likely to come back to the hospital, but we can now understand why Joe is coming back to the hospital. So whether that's he can't afford his medication, doesn't have transportation, doesn't like the taste of his pill, whatever it may be, we can actually provide that information by looking through all of the unstructured data, which can ultimately impact that patient's care plan and change the outcome for that particular patient. We also worked with a healthcare imaging manufacturer to, again, they were looking to understand their customer service interactions. So by looking at their customer complaint data and some of the interactions they had across their call center, we were able to, again, understand the natural language that people were using and the way people were communicating to provide insights into what some of the most common issues were in customer service gaps. And as a result of this, which was so successful, they were able to say, let's actually use our customer service feedback and customer complaint data to help us identify what we need to address in future engineering releases, and they've identified several critical engineering issues. This has become part of their change request pipeline as well, so they're actually starting to incorporate customer feedback into their manufacturing process. We've also worked with a consumer insights agency. This particular agency was looking to enable their brand managers with information much more quickly than they were able to in the past. So we actually created a chat-based mobile Watson application that allowed brand managers to ask Watson things like, why are shampoo sales down in the Northeast? And Watson would interpret that question, understand what the brand manager was looking for, and would display back a few answers to that question, as well as a dynamic interface providing some of the underlying data behind it, where they could continue to drill back and forth through this natural language type of interface. So they went from taking days to transform and provide this information to their brand managers to a matter of minutes by using a Watson-powered application. We also worked with a software company to create a Watson digital concierge. So they were really focused on reshaping and reforming their customer experience. It was taking them about a day and a half to respond to some of these Tier 1 requests. They were going back and forth over email. And so by implementing a Watson concierge, they were able to handle Tier 1 requests from beginning to end entirely independently. This digital concierge was initially scaled to support software activation and basic maintenance tasks and has since been scaled to additional use cases. As a result of implementing this Watson concierge, they saw 90% lower support costs and 99% shorter resolution times. So we also worked with a Midwestern healthcare payer. This is an IVR situation where they were looking to actually, again, augment their existing IVR system. And we created Watson as an agent that converses with providers over the phone through their IVR system to verify benefits. So as a result of doing that, we transformed the process again from if you're calling to check benefits, press 1. If you're calling to do this, press 2, to just a natural conversation with a Watson agent. And since they've implemented that Watson agent, they've seen their call time reduced from 8 minutes to 3 minutes, and they've seen a huge reduction in the number of requests where people are, yelling agent or representative or pressing 0 into the phone. So they've really seen great adoption for that initial IVR application as well. And then finally, we worked with another healthcare provider who was looking to understand patient populations. We had Watson analyzing the patient EMR, again, all of the unstructured data that happens and that exists around your interactions with your healthcare provider. And we were able to accurately identify patients with 92% accuracy for a specific disease state. We were able to help them streamline their care management process. So we saw over the identification that people were doing manually a 41% improvement and a 75% decrease in the time that they spent reviewing the electronic medical record system. So another very common question we get is, how do I actually get started? How do I understand what Watson can do for my organization? And we found 2 very successful approaches depending on your maturity level and where you are in your cognitive journey. The first approach we will usually take is a Watson workshop, which is really a focused engagement to understand a little bit more, again, of what Watson is, how it works, how it's being used in your industry, how it may apply, and what some of the KPIs and the metrics that you're looking to accomplish with a cognitive solution may be. And we also offer an IBM Watson Innovation Lab, which is a longer engagement, a collaboration with our digital agency where we're looking to understand not only the technical components but also the user experience. And we're rapidly prototyping and ideating on the possibilities of cognitive for your organization and your company. So with that, I will hand it back to Stephanie for one more question before we head into questions.
Great, thanks, Kristine. And now that we've reviewed some of the common use cases for cognitive, we'll move on to our next polling question. So of the following use cases, which do you feel is most compelling for your group or organization? You can select as many as you'd like. So is scaling expertise and knowledge, customer complaint or feedback data analysis, digital concierge and chatbots, cognitive agents and IVR systems. And we'll let everyone respond over the next few seconds. All right, so it looks like it's pretty even distribution of responses here, with scaling expertise and knowledge being the highest. All right, and so now we'll move on to some questions that have come in during the session. So the first question, actually we had a couple questions regarding data privacy and security within Watson. So how is the corporate data ingested by Watson protected, since the data is used by Watson Cloud? And how are the cognitive abilities that developed by ingestion of the client's proprietary data protected and dedicated to that specific client and not the competition?
Sure, that's a good question and also a pretty common one. So think of Watson again as being designed to integrate and incorporate within your organization. So every client gets their own, let's say, mini instance of Watson. And rather than training a shared knowledge base, you are training Watson specific to your domain and your organization. So you're working on a private cloud. Your information is not consumed back by the platform in any way unless you specifically opt to share that data back with IBM. But it's kept very isolated, and you are always training your instance of Watson to think and interact and respond the way you would expect your direct employees to respond. So you have an ability to actually, again, engage Watson as though it were an employee of your company very specifically, and all of that information is kept within your private cloud.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kristine. So we had a question about the presentation recording. We will be sending out a copy of the presentation and a link to recording after the call. Next question, are there any other components necessary to leverage Watson Explorer to deliver cognitive solutions?
No. So Watson is designed, again, to to integrate and interact with all of your existing applications and platforms. So it's meant to be incorporated into your existing content management, analytics, process management, systems and applications, and by design, it's got native connectors, native integrations to all of those platforms, and is almost always released in conjunction with your systems of record. So it's really meant to augment and enhance those existing systems rather than replace or create new ones. So it's always designed to incorporate with your existing applications.
Okay, how important is data governance review as part of an engagement?
So it follows the age-old adage at this point of garbage in, garbage out, right? You definitely want to train Watson on the appropriate and the correct data. But I would say, a common misconception is that you need to have all of your data prepared and ready to hit the ground running with a Watson solution. There are actually components of the Watson platform designed to help with that data discovery, understanding where it is, data cleansing, data preparation. And so that can often be the beginning of your cognitive journey, is really starting to do some of that data preparation, data cleansing, and incorporating some of that governance into your engagement. So we can help, and that's why a lot of times we're seeing some of these phased approaches and these workshops as being successful for us to really understand where you guys are as an organization and how we can help come alongside you based on your maturity and the state of your current data as well.
Okay, we had a question on whether Watson does predictive analytics.
So Watson in its purest sense, if you look at the Watson core platform or the Watson Developer Cloud, is not a predictive analytics platform. It's designed to work in conjunction with things like SPSS or Watson Predictive Analytics. And we have done that in quite a few solutions where we've integrated Watson with some of the predictive analytics applications. And really they become complementary solutions because all of your predictive analytics platforms and applications require very structured data to understand and to operate on. So we see Watson as being a lot of the data preparation and interpretation engine that we feed to a predictive analytics engine.
Does Watson use machine learning and knowledge graphs?
So it depends a little bit on which piece of Watson in particular you're talking about. So the core Watson cognitive APIs almost all have some machine learning infused into them. Watson Explorer Advanced Edition and Watson Explorer Enterprise do not really have machine learning. They're really seen as foundational steps to the larger cognitive application. But most of the other things like the Conversation API, Watson Knowledge Studio, Digital Recognition, Discovery Service, those all incorporate machine learning.
Is there anything that that companies should keep in mind when developing a data warehouse so that they are better able to leverage Watson for text analysis?
So traditionally, we're getting the information for these unstructured applications outside of the data warehouse because, again, data warehouses are not typically built to handle large blobs of information or text. Once you start getting past a few paragraphs, you start to oftentimes expand the realm of a data warehouse depending on the scope and the scale of that. If you're looking at a data lake, sometimes that's a little different. But it's always, we always try to recommend that you preserve the data integrity throughout your organization. So again, we can't really do, Watson needs the full context to do text analysis. So trying to perform like some level of NLP or data extraction before you pull it into your warehouse, you're going to be left in that land of looking for keywords where you may be misled or head down the wrong path, again, if all you're looking for is specific keywords or phrases. So when you look at a cognitive solution, you really want to preserve the integrity and the full context of that conversation or that interaction and be able to tie it back to other pieces within your organization as well.
Great, thanks, Kristine. It looks like that might be it for questions. If you have any other questions that come to mind after the session, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to answer those for you. I encourage you to follow Perficient's team online as we have new information that's added daily. You can visit Perficient.com and click on the Insights tab for our blogs, white papers, and upcoming webinars. If you're interested in hearing more information on Watson use cases specifically for the insurance industry, we have an upcoming webinar on June 20th as well. And just to reiterate, we will be sending out a copy of this presentation along with a link to the recording afterwards. So thanks again to everyone for joining us on this webinar, and have a great afternoon.